ABM program? Well, having sat client side for over 15 years, I know ROI is one of those questions that agencies often dodge, right? They don't like to be held accountable for delivering a clear return on investment and spend with an agency. But actually at Seablue, we run towards ROI and KPIs and key metrics of success for the work that we're delivering. So what can we expect, right? What should we be looking at? What should we be measuring? For me, the starting point of being able to set metrics and ROI targets start at the very beginning of the program, right? So it's really important that we're working together with our clients on very tight criteria and account selection up front. So putting that work into identifying the right accounts, investing time in analysing the data, formulating the insights, building that tight value proposition and engagement strategy, that's going to be critical in terms of everything that comes next when we get into execution. And that's what will drive the maximum ROI from investment in Seablue or in, internally as well. So that's the first thing. It's really important, and we certainly build that in very heavily into our, our ABM Accelerate methodology. Then if we're looking at, so moving on from there, right, so how do we actually get into the ROI calculations? Well, first of all, it's a full funnel approach, right? We're not, we are certainly looking at KPIs initially in the very early stages that indicate engagement, that we're connecting to the right people, that we're, we're starting to see those insights and those messages landing, but very much so taking that full funnel approach. So how do we see those early engagements convert into, sales qualified opportunities, qualified opportunities with pipeline value attached, and then into closed won. Now, calculating that, the key things that you need will naturally be to understand the average deal value, whether that's, total contract value or, annualized recurring revenue, get agreement on what the metric would be, and then have a view of clearly the sales cycle. So, if we're talking about a 2-year sales cycle, then that's going to impact the, your expectations in terms of closed won revenue in year one. But what you absolutely expect to see is that influence of pipeline in year one, and then year two is very much around closing down that pipeline. But assuming it's a less than 12-month sales cycle, then you start to look at, right, well, what am I, how are my initial engagement metrics going to convert into pipeline and into closed won? Now, I tend to use 40-40-40 as a solid benchmark. There will be some variation naturally, whether it's a net new set of accounts that we're seeking to target or existing customers where you're known already and you already have direct relationships into contacts. There'll be some factors that influence sectors, particularly in this economic environment. Certainly some sectors will be more impacted than others, and their ability actually to take action. So the available budget to enable them to move quickly. But as a general rule, I use 40-40-40 as the benchmark on which we drive conversion rates and get to our ROI calculation. So taking a cohort of 30 accounts, which is typically our starting point for our ABM Accelerate program, we execute in a clustered kind of one to few methodology. So 30 accounts with a 40% conversion will generate 12 qualified accounts. 40% conversion again equals 5 qualified opportunities, with an assumption here of let's take it to work through the numbers. It's $1 million average deal value. 5 opportunities would derive a pipeline value of $5 million, and then your 40% win rate. We're looking at a target of 2 closed won deals and $2 million booked revenue. That generates a 33-to-1 ROI in terms of conversion of spend to pipeline, and a 13-to-1 ROI of closed won revenue. Important to say that that's in year. As I said, where you get, where opportunities and pipeline is created later in year, naturally you'd expect that potentially to close in year 2 of your program. So really important that you're continuing to follow those metrics and see how those pipeline opportunities are moving to closed won. And equally, how from your original 30 account cohorts, how can you continue to drive that engagement, right? So continue to build your stakeholder, account personas, people to target within the accounts. How can you continue to grow that audience, continue to engage, continue to seek to qualify more of those accounts? And that's where your ROI can increase significantly as you move into year 2, year 3. And certainly the other factor to point out is as you learn what's working in terms of what messages are landing, what tactics and execution vehicles are performing well, then you look at, back to my original account cohort, how do I identify further lookalike accounts, and how do I bring them into my engagement stream? And that's really first where you can drive increased scalability, improve efficiencies, and then increase your ROI, because you're actually maximizing the investment that you've made up front in your ABM approach to bring more accounts into the process, and then through the funnel into pipeline and closed won. We see actually on average our ROI is actually in the order of 97-to-1 is actually, when we've seen well beyond 100-to-1 ROI in terms of conversion on some of our ABM programs. So I think I would demand ownership and accountability and expectations from my agency partner in terms of the ROI metrics that they're supporting you with, and ensure that they're full funnel, that they're actually directly contributing to pipeline and to closed won revenue, and we're not looking at kind of oscillating top middle funnel in terms of those more engagement oriented KPIs. So I think clearly from a ROI perspective, ABM does deliver results, but so important that we follow them through the full sales funnel.